Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Uttara, and I am the founder of Magical Blends, which is a new skincare brand. We are a patented concept in skincare because we are very, very different from whatever exists in the category at the moment. At Magical Blends, we believe that our skin is a unique living organ, and therefore everybody needs different kind of actives at different points of time. And that is what we strive to give you in terms of freedom to design and choose your own skincare.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Abhinav Midda. I'm Vice President at GoQuick. GoQuick is an e-commerce enablement company. We build everything D2C. Today, we are working with almost 10,000 plus odd brands in the D2C space. Just to enlighten all of you, India has over 1 lakh D2C brands which exist today, so the market is growing at a very good pace. I think we have D2C is how I look at it, is like the new restaurant, where today everyone is going to build D2C, and we love that because I think the future is online and a lot of people want to build something, and we see a lot of good big companies coming out of this. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Akriti. I'm the founder and CEO of Gub. Gub is the second largest grooming brand in India. And now we are expanding into beauty tools and accessories. But pretty much we cover head to toe everything from your hair brushes, hair dryers, bath tools, everything that you can think under the sun. And we're trying to disrupt the category. It's a very sleepy category historically, very unorganized and unbranded. You go to a Kirana store, you pick up a hairbrush, you don't see the brand, but we're trying to elevate the whole experience for the consumer, that let's not just focus on skincare and makeup. Beauty tools are also equally important, and the consumer cares now. So we're just trying to disrupt the category and make it more fun and memorable, which it hasn't been for the longest time. So that's what we do at Gub.
Hi, I am Shalini. I am e-commerce head at Blossom Culture Beauty Products Private Limited. It is a brand typically based on aromatherapy, which delivers holistic beauty. Because we believe that beauty is not superficial. It works on your body, mind, your soul. So we are delivering holistic beauty with the ways of aromatherapy. And it's been 35 plus years in this industry, and we have a very good loyal customer base who believe in this journey. Beauty is not a present day task or tomorrow's task to go there and this look beautiful. It is a journey. So that's where we imbibe our participation in every consumer. We believe that holistic beauty is a way forward, and everybody should step into this world. Thank you.
So Shalini, my first question is to you. So how are you leveraging consumer data across platforms to personalize the shopping experience?
Since I said that we have been in this industry since ages now, and Dr. Kochhar as a founder has always believed knowing the customer since scratches. I mean, she knows, 35 years down the line, she knew that every customer and every skin type is different. So not a one all skin type solution can suit everybody. So she always delivered a range of beauty solutions which is specifically made for different skin types. And we do have that personalization touch added with the ways of beauty advisory, because we are a heavily driven brand in the offline segment. So we started our personalization journey with beauty advisory. So we do have a lot of retail outlets where we have our beauty advisors who advise, who connect with the consumer, who understands their skin type, and then they guide them to make their buying journey easier. And same thing is being replicated in online also after COVID. Every third traditional brand, we must have been one of them itself, that we realized the importance of e-commerce when the COVID hit. So, and that's how we understood ki exactly we need to be focusing on this area as well. So that's how we replicated that beauty advisory in the online foray also. So we do track customer data. We do connect with them. We try and understand their pain points, why they drop out on cart, why they are not able to make a purchase when our offerings are very affordable. They are very quality-driven products and at an affordable price. So it becomes a question for us also, why are they not buying? So when we connect with them, we do understand that they are not able to make that decision कि किस cleanser के साथ क्या moisturizer जाएगा. उसके बाद we do preferably make oil as a mandate to be used as a beauty journey. It is not only CTM, it is CTOM that we perceive. So we do connect with the consumer, we do understand their pain point, we do suggest them what to use and how to use and when to use, and that's how we try and manage that gap between like online, offline, and connecting with the consumer in the way forward that they would understand what is it all about and how they can utilize it in a regular thing.
So what percentage of your sales comes from the online?
Online is 25. And we are obviously a data-driven company, so we are getting a major share from there itself. And obviously, we have been believing into a lot of personalization, so we do have loyal customers at our retail outlet, and the BAs are directly connected with the consumer. So एक होता है ना वो पर्सनलाइज टच हो गया, आपका एक ब्यूटिशियन है, आप बहुत ज़्यादा उससे कनेक्टेड हो, वो आपको जिस भी ब्रांड पे लेके जाएगा वो वहाँ आप चले जाओगे. So that's how it becomes. So that's where the loyalty comes in. So loyalty retail में ज़्यादा है, and here we have been into a leaky bucket since last 2 years because every third day there is a new brand which is emerging with a deep pocket in hand and they have been investing a lot of money into Meta, Google, and these are the major players from where you can buy the customers from, right? And the brands like us, we have been taking a baby step while losing out a lot of customers, but we are slow and steady. We are grabbing the customers with high set of loyalty from our offline market. Yeah. And D2C, we majorly target it for awareness purpose.
Okay. So Akriti, my next question is to you. So how are you building trust and engagement with online consumers as beauty accessories are mostly dominated by the offline market?
Correct. So I think we got lucky. We started as an offline brand, not as an online brand. So that unlocked a couple of things for us. So we are present in 30,000 retail stores all over India. Over time, because the consumer is seeing us everywhere, that compounds over time. If you're seeing a brand, say on quick commerce also, offline also, that trust builds over time with the consumer that this brand is probably reliable. I'm seeing it everywhere. So that really helped us. Secondly, a lot of customers go to the retail outlets, they try our products, the touch and feel is there, and they would end up purchasing it online. So it also unlocks a lot of customers for us from that channel. But talking about purely like online consumer, I would say social proofing helps so much. Content is king right now. Everybody is spending so much time scrolling through Instagram. So we leverage that by doing a lot of influencer collabs or a lot of seedings where we just send the products to a lot of influencers and then we let them decide if they like it, they post content. And we honestly prefer a lot of organic content over paid collaborations because the consumer now is obviously smarter also, and personally even I prefer if I see something organic versus a paid collaboration coming one after the other. So I think social proofing, very important, have fun with the content, that helps, being authentic. The storytelling aspect definitely helps too, and over time your quality speaks more than anything else. That builds trust very slowly, but I think that's the biggest lever for trust for any consumer brand, be it your design, be it your quality, be it your unboxing experience. So we focus a lot on the unboxing or the packaging because again, this category is neglected or boring. So how do we make it fun? So the first thing we did was a pop of colors, a lot of like pastel colors, which is usually not the case. You will see browns and blacks in grooming, but we were like, okay, let's break the category code and experiment. But I would say any consumer touch point that you can leverage over time, it compounds, but trust is something you don't win overnight. You just have to be patient with it, and it does pay off in the long run. So being hyper focused on quality, and any consumer touch point, be it a pop-up store that you have or any retail outlet or even online reviews or anything at all, make sure you're addressing every comment, be it negative or positive. So we make sure we talk to consumers and have a conversation on all channels, be it online, offline, wherever possible.
So Abhinav, from your point of view, what data points do you think are under-leveraged by beauty brands who are selling online, and how they can perform better going ahead?
Sure. I think, see, if you look at it, I think a lot of data points are under leveraged across categories. If you look at it online, it's just beginning, right? How we look at it is that we're probably just moving from an infant to probably the childhood phase of the online category in India. If I talk about beauty brands, I think a couple of insights which I've just probably looked up into our data just before coming in here, right? I think, see, beauty, how we look at it is a very high impulse category. A lot of shopping happening by impulse. And we feel people don't pay as much attention to the product details in the product pages. How we look at it, like, I don't know how many people actually end up measuring that, okay, for these cohort of customers, this sort of high-res image or this kind of multiple images work well, or for this cohort, something else. You know, consumers have also become, I think, very knowledgeable. So, for example, these is ingredients you use in the beauty products. I don't know how many people go really deep into showcasing it up out there, or even going deep into what is the use case of each ingredient into this product, right? I think these are a couple of very, very strong points which I see most brands not really focusing a lot on. I'm not saying all don't, but I see a lot of people don't experiment here. See, another important factor which people ignore, where I see a lot of D2C brands focus on the kind of customers who are converting and try to keep targeting them, retargeting them. But I think lot of people don't look at, let's say, abandoned searches for a brand whose customers come, search something but not eventually bought, right? What is the frequency, which product is being searched frequently but not being bought? Some of these data points are kind of get neglected, I know, in the day-to-day hustle of trying to run the business. These are some niche points, but I think they eventually, we've personally worked with a few brands on this, and those who pay deep attention to such, I think see a much better conversion as compared to, you know, any other brand who's not able to probably focus right now. Right? I would suggest most of these brands to continuously conduct A/B test on each product page. What works for what audience, what cohort. I think some of these points actually make a large amount of difference when you look at your conversion at the end of the day.
I think data collection is doing wonders for every brand right now. So I'm coming to you. So as a founder of a new beauty brand, so how do you tap into customer preferences and feedback to guide product development and storytelling?
So the journey for Magical Blends was slightly different in that sense, because as far as the products themselves were concerned, individual SKUs were not that much of a challenge, but it was more about whether the concept was landing or not, because it required the customers to actually use their own ability and use their own discretion and their own interest of trying to mix and match the products. We did this testing completely offline. We did a very, very large and detailed testing spanning over multiple phases. The first thing that we tested for was whether the concept itself landed. And even we were taken aback by how well people actually responded to saying that, yes, I'm finally getting the freedom to choose what I want to put on my skin, instead of just picking up a ready jar where it is supposed to solve certain issues, but I may not have all of those issues. So that was phase one. Post that, we did a complete thorough research in terms of blind use tests, where we took feedback from consumers. We went back to the drawing board. We actually went through multiple iterations of product testing. And even now, post-launch, every month we try and have at least 2 to 3 physical consumer touch points where we continue to keep taking feedback from consumers in terms of how we could improve the product. It is not only the product itself, it is also the whole experience of taking product A, product B, product C, and creating their own personalized blend in that sense. So that is something that largely happens offline, but many of those conversations begin as touch points received from feedback that comes online as well.
So Shalini, how are you bridging the gap between the offline and online experiences in the beauty space?
Come again, please.
How are you bridging the gap between the offline and online experiences?
It is again one of the aspects that I have already discussed is like beauty advisory is trying to replicate that format. This is how we are able to connect with the offline consumer also, and the same is being roaming out all around. If they are able to find us online also, they make a purchase there, and there is a kind of shift that keeps on happening once we have already connected with the consumer, right? So this is one thing, and then we have our educational touch point where we enable the beauty professionals how to use the products, right? It is not only the kind of CTOM that we offer. We do offer salon range. We do offer professional products for salon businesses also. So we do ensure that there are enough educational trainers available in the market who will go and talk to these professionals, make them understand how they are going to utilize this like simple salon facial. Suppose it's a facial kit. They do go and kind of give them a kind of exposure how to use that, how they can provide a better service to the client, how this is going to be an effective product for their clients. So, and why is it important? The kind of who, why, how, we are trying to resolve that through that ETS Wala format. Then we do have our Blossom Kocher College of Arts and Design, where we do train professionals. The beauty enthusiasts are getting trained there. So lot of students are coming who are getting trained into this business, and they are providing their professional service into the beauty world. So these are all the major points through which we are trying to tap our consumer and connect them through all the touch points wherever we do meet them. We do have our retail outlets also. We do have our spa launch services at HKV. So we do connect with the consumers. We do provide the same experience of spa services. Along with that, the beauty products are also available so that they can experience it and then make a purchase of the product also. And there are also beauty advisors available there. They do guide them what to take, and because there is a kind of pre and post care after that salon services also. So we do guide them. And this is a kind of simple thing that I wanted to tell, that it is not only one aspect that we look forward to कि product बना दिया अभी उसको बेचना है. It is a complete journey. कि starting from making a beautiful product, this journey starts. That we have made a relevant product for all ages. It is not only for Gen Z, it is not only for millennials, it is for teenagers also. And it is as safe as for kids also. But we are not launched this category yet, so I'll not be talking about that. But it is safe. It is safe for all ages of the generation, all ages and all generations. And the first thing that we have removed is just replacing the harmful chemical from the aromatherapy essential oils. So, and essential oils itself elevate the product quality of the beauty products that we have. So that's how we try to bridge that gap from everywhere.
So Abhinav, how are you helping brands reduce friction in the e-commerce journey and improve conversion rates?
Sure. So I'll just quickly talk about GoQuick here, right? We started during COVID. The pillars on which we thought about starting GoQuick were two, right? I think convenience and personalization. I think these are two broad themes which eventually help improve conversion. So all the products at GoQuick are built on these two themes. One of the main products that I'll probably talk about a little bit, right? It's our one-click checkout. What do we do here is try to, blend convenience and personalization. How do we do it? See, when you look at checkout, there are three phases of a checkout. When the consumer clicks on add to cart, post goes there, there is a login where the consumer has to enter the phone number, OTP. Today, as mentioned, that we have a network of almost close to 150 odd million users logged into GoQuick network across various brands that we work with. So we are able to, let's say, pre-log in almost 25% of the partners that we work with. So 25% of your audience don't have to enter OTP. They just logged in onto the moment they do an add to cart, they get logged in. right? We are able to pre-fill addresses. If address is such a, point where you see maximum drop-offs. The moment everybody is sitting on the bed, they have to enter an address. Oh no, where do I locate it? It's so much time. People will drop off. And you said it's an impulse category, right? People, the lowest amount of time you get people to, time to spend on the checkout, the better it is. Because once he's made up his mind, you just make him just buy and leave, right? So we try and reduce some time, some sort of friction for people to, pre-fill addresses for almost 75% of the logins across all our brands that happen. And then obviously we try to personalize the payments part based on the data that we have. Okay, he's a UPI heavy customer, show him UPI first. He's a, credit card first customer, and so on and so forth. Along with this, to help brands convert better, not just from a conversion perspective, but also from an ROI perspective, we also optimize cash on delivery. India is a very heavy cash on delivery market. Almost 60% of all transactions across e-commerce brands are cash on delivery. And the unfortunate truth is that almost 25 to 30% of those end up being RTO'd, which is a e-commerce term where it says people order but they don't accept. Right? So we provide a lot of intelligence to our brands in terms of which order is a high risk order, whether you want to give them a cash on delivery option, you want to try to convert them to prepaid, and so on and so forth. So we try to bring convenience in this whole offline journey. I can talk about a lot. I think in the interest of time, we have multiple other products in terms of WhatsApp messaging platform where we help brands acquire, retain, etc. But I think I'll probably do the marketing of my own brand a little later. Yeah, but that's about GoQuick, largely based on two broad pillars, right? Personalization, convenience, which eventually help brands convert. Thank you.
So Akriti, can you share how consumer feedback and shopping behavior have influenced product innovation or merchandising on your platform?
Of course. I think consumer feedback is a goldmine for any consumer brand, especially in the beauty space. I feel like the consumers are so smart right now. They're so well educated. They're following brands all over the world. They're consuming so much content. So they're very hyper aware of different features they like, what they don't like, and they're following all the Western influencers. So you should really trust them as number one. So we take our consumer feedback very seriously. So in a few ways, we tried it out. For example, when we were rebranding 3 years back, we decided to do it in a very consumer-centric and community way, where on our social media channels, we would do the conversation with the consumer, where we would put our story with different logo options, that which one are you liking? We are going through a rebranding exercise, and which new Gub logo do you think resonates with you? Then in terms of the tagline, we ask the consumer on our social media, which one are you liking? Same with packaging, colors, everything. So I think the more you take in the consumer's feedback, the better it is. And it's such a powerful tool, I feel, for any brand. Just like listening to them has given me so many product ideas, not only just online, even offline. I make sure I go to every pop-up store, even though my team says, don't come, you don't need to be here. I always still show up and just talk to consumers and just understand what do they really want. And another example, an anecdote is we have a travel range that we were thinking of just discontinuing because it was not performing very well for a really long time. And during some of the consumer conversations, we realized that actually consumer does want travel accessories now because the travel has gone through the roof. And now the travel category has become number one for us on Blinkit, which we were actually going to get rid of a few years back. So, and some of the products are the top sellers for us and revenue contributors. So just a few simple insights and conversations or DMs have led to such great insights. And same for overall the grooming category we were talking about, that the consumer did say that we want a more aspirational brand, and it goes beyond the consumer conversation with your brand. I think social listening is also such an important tool. So as a founder, I make sure I'm seeing other brands, what they are doing, what are the consumers saying about those brands, what are the consumers saying about the category in general, be it like skincare or makeup or beauty tools and accessories. So just listening to those trends made me also realize that the Indian consumer wants a more aspirational experience now. They're done of just getting bare minimum functional utility products. They want their beauty products or they want their grooming tools to be looking pretty on their vanity shelf or in their bathroom. They don't want it to look ugly anymore. Was one that let's elevate the experience. And that insight again came from just social listening and seeing that the consumer in India is evolving, so we should serve the consumer better. But I think that's the best channel, and it's a very underrated channel to sharpen your product assortment, to come up with new launches, or just to overall, improve your brand positioning also. So 100% think that's a gold mine that everybody should leverage.
So, Uttara, what digital tools or platforms have been most impactful for you in building a brand or a digital connection with your consumers?
Sure. So basically, we work on the mantra that B is equal to MAT. Now, that is very simple, that behavior is a sum total of motivation, ability, and the right trigger at the right time as far as the consumer is concerned. So everything that we do tries to enable this cycle, helping consumers move towards the desired action, which is obviously the trigger to purchase, right? So in terms of the first one, in terms of motivation, we try and educate consumers as much as possible about why they should opt for skincare that's personalized or personalizable to them, and therefore the benefits that they can get out of it. Now, this is done through various tools. We have a lot of collabs that we do with influencers. Most of them are unpaid and organic, because we believe in people putting it out in the way that is most authentic to them, because that's the only way that it will resonate and connect with the consumers. Coming to the ability part of it, we try and have webinars, we do consumer touchpoint interactions, we have a quiz on our website which allows consumers to answer a very simple set of 6 to 7 questions, basis which we can suggest to them what combination of skincare would be the most useful for them, and so on or so forth. So there are specific tools that help to enable and make the consumers able to make this choice. Finally, coming obviously to the trigger point, the biggest thing here, of course, is performance, which we are trying to do in a big way. And we are also trying to focus on sampling through digital and otherwise. We've tied up with some of the key sampling platforms in the country, and we've already reached out to more than 50,000 consumers across the country this way. So let's see, it's early days yet, but hopefully the next time you hear of Magical Blends, you'll remember multiple touch points where you would have connected with the brand.
So, Akriti touched upon a good point about quick commerce increasing and how it is performing better for you. So, I wanted to understand from each one of you, how important is it for you? And do you think the future lies in quick commerce for beauty brands? Because recently, I think in the past 2-3 months, I have also seen many beauty brands entering into the quick commerce space. So how is it working for you all?
Personally, I love it, even though it's become very tricky for our business, because historically we've been an offline brand. So obviously general trade, modern trade are suffering massively because of quick commerce. But as a user and brand itself, it's great for multiple reasons. One is that the distribution you've gotten. Earlier, we obviously started our online journey with the e-commerce platforms, Amazons and Flipkarts of the world, and then beauty retailers like Nykaa, Tira, all of those, Myntra, everyone. But there it was so much harder to spend money to make sure the consumer is discovering you, versus on quick commerce, day one, without spending anything on marketing, we just got access to so many more customers that we just don't have to do anything. I think in one of the earlier panels also there was a discussion point about this, that the reach and distribution you get through quick commerce, and even the bottom line is actually great. Because as a brand, all you have to do is optimize for the supply chain. In fact, we were struggling. We've been there now for almost 3 years on Zepto, Blinkit. We were very early. But the biggest challenge has been maintaining the inventory, because we never expected that for our category, there'll be so much demand. And that's the biggest priority for us right now, that just how do we maintain the fill rates, because the demand is clearly there. And I think what quick commerce has done in India is the use case has completely changed. The use case initially was that grocery, you want your milk or your fruit or any urgent need you have, you want your groceries. But now it's become anything and everything. Even if you don't really need it in 10 minutes, now you want it. So it's completely changed the consumer behavior, I feel, in India. And it's something that would only work in India. It wouldn't work in a lot of other countries like the US or any European country, in fact. In India, I think it works really well, and it's really spoiled the consumer for sure, because Now, why do I wait for any product for more than like 10 minutes? You don't want to wait for 2 days, 3 days anymore. You just want everything instantly. So definitely spoiling the consumer. But even as a brand, it's worked for us. But obviously, it's cannibalizing our sales from other channels that we had for a really long time, be it general trade, modern trade, where we have expansive distribution. But we've sort of sharpened our strategy where we are focusing on our retail channels in tier 3, tier 4 cities where Blinkit, Zepto have not reached, so that we don't neglect that customer. And sometimes my sales team gets like very angry that, you know, like Blinkit and Zepto have taken away all our business, what are we doing? But I think it's overall, India is such a diverse country, and India is not like limited to one consumer type. I do think retail will not go anywhere in India right now, for sure, for the next like 10 years. So it's best to optimize for all channels, and Indian consumers diverse, so better to be there on all channels for sure. But I'm all for quick commerce, and I really, really like it as a brand owner and even as a consumer too.
Abhinav, your take.
Sure. I think largely agree with what Akriti says, right? I think while quick commerce stands for speed of delivery and it's really changed the consumer way of thinking, I think D2C stands for variety, right? Where quick commerce might solve for some problems where everything you need for, like, let's say, 10 minutes, it's also changed my personal habit. I see everyone just ordering everything in 10 minutes, but there are consumers who are looking out there for variety. So I think both channels complement each other in a way. But I think one important point that stands out, what quick commerce has changed is expectation of speed of delivery. So quick commerce gets you in 10 minutes, but now when people are even ordering in D2C, they expect the same day or the next day. So I think that's definitely changing. I agree both channels will complement each other in the long term, will continue to grow. But definitely speed of delivery is what we all need to optimize for.
Shalini.
Yes, obviously, quick commerce and the traditional channels, along with this, all these marketplaces, has to go hand in hand. The only difference is like the level of assortments that we manage across the marketplaces. There is no limitation, right? If you have 200 plus, 500 plus SKUs, go and launch it and manage it at your sole discretion. If you have that infrastructure built in, you can manage it all along, right? But quick commerce is still having that space crunch. They have limited dark stores. So you cannot go and launch your N number of SKUs there. So you need to pick and choose your SKUs very consciously, which will make a relevance to the consumer journey, whether it will be a daily care product or not, whether it will be a requirement to be like being searched by all your consumers, whether they will be looking forward for it in 10 minutes or not. Like if we are dealing in beauty, then something like face wash is a daily care product, right? So everybody might be looking forward to it. Early morning we wake up and we find out that face wash khatam ho gaya hai, so we'll be needing it within 10 minutes. But that same thing doesn't go with the other products, like it's a simple cleanser or maybe a body milk or a kind of facial or something like that. So that's why we need to invest more time in curating the products which will go in each of these verticals to have that unified approach along with the conversion rates, that the products will not go and stuck in any of these verticals for a longer time frame, to avoid that aging limitation also, because quick commerce every 15 days they do mark aging. The products are being aged because it is not selling. But if your product is having a shelf life of 3 years, then it seems like what is happening with it, obviously. So it's better that you consciously choose the product and make it relevant for the marketplace and for the consumers who are going there. Because yes, consumers may be common, but there might be some niche consumer who must only be picking up it now from quick commerce. So you need to be using these quick commerce for better penetration and increasing the reach of the brand, and other platforms for a growth driven approach for your brand. So that's what I can tell.
Uttara, your take.
Yes, I am. I absolutely agree with my co-panelists. Just one more thing to add to the quick commerce behavior, that by its very nature, it is something which is great for established brands as well as for discovering brands. So that's the other big plus that is there with quick commerce, because if it is a tried and trusted product, that you are used to and habituated to consuming, you won't think twice about ordering it with a 10-minute delivery. But at the same time, if you come across something which looks new and interesting and cool especially, then the way today's generation is, they will not think twice about trying it out as well. And the plus point of having it in your hands in the next 10 minutes actually makes that conversion that much easier and that much more likely to happen. So even from that point of view, quick commerce makes sense, and it's about time that we all got onto the bandwagon.
Yeah, I agree with that. So content is king. We know that now, be it influencer-led, educational. So what role does content is playing in your operations to better connect with the consumers? Any one of you can answer.
I can go first. I'll keep it super short. I think the audience is like ready to go home. Everybody's like getting sleepy now. I think content is definitely king. All of us are so guilty of spending hours and hours on our phone every day, scrolling through Instagram videos, YouTube videos. It's a very important tool. I don't think content is only a digital tool. I also think of content as your physical assets, be it your packaging. That's also a content tool where you can story tell through that. And obviously your digital assets, be it your A+ content on your product page or be it your videos, every single touch point, physical or digital, is your content. So we spend a lot of time on that and care a lot about that. And anytime a new platform launches a new tool, if Blinkit launched the video tool, we like day one said, we have our videos ready, let's go live with it. Or if it's like they launch now A+ tool on their pages, we were like, let's go and add it all. So content we do care about, but I think what matters the most is the organic content, the influencer collaborations that you see, or just any influencer touch point that you see right now, you trust and value the most, because that's organic. So whoever you really, whose opinion you value, you want to see that product in those hands, is what my takeaway is. And for our category, I feel like we are really trying to story tell. So we do care a lot about our social media footprint, because like I mentioned, sleepy category, a little bit boring, let's make it fun. How do we make it fun apart from just the packaging or the design? It has to be content, it has to be the storytelling. So it's a free storytelling tool for any consumer brand, I would say. But for us, we try to really make sure that we can show the lifestyle aspect of the product, so that we just make this category more aspirational. So I would say it helps with reach and discoverability as well. If you do the influencer collaborations, or sometimes mostly actually we don't do any paid collaborations, or we don't do much. We just send out the product. And a lot of times celebrities or even big influencers would have discovered our products, posted videos organically, and that's given us millions and millions of reach overnight, which has been magical. So I think reach and distribution you get. Second is the storytelling part. And I also think for new categories, 3 years back when we launched gua shas and the jade rollers, that was a completely new product category in India. So the educational aspect also gets unlocked through content, be it your tutorials or your videos or any kind of explaining what is this product really. So for new categories also, I think that's a very important weapon. So I really enjoy content, consuming it and making it. So I think it's the best form of storytelling and also communicating what you are as a brand, because where else will you communicate that? There's so many brands, there's so much clutter. How else will you stand out apart from like the basic hygiene? So I think it's a under-leveraged tool for sure, and really, really love using content.
So Uttara, as a niche brand, how are you educating your consumers, and what role does content play in your operations?
So we actually try to do a lot of content which is focused on how people can get the most out of the products. So we share various use cases, we share relatable examples. So for example, if it's the monsoons and you have to go out for brunch, what is the kind of skincare regime that you would ideally want to follow? Or for example, you've gone for a holiday to Finland and it is minus 10 degrees. What is the kind of skincare regimen that you would need there in the AM and the PM to make sure that your skin remains healthy, it remains stress-free, it remains there to enjoy the holiday as much as you do, right? So we do a lot of content around all of this. We do a lot of content around people actually interacting with the products and their feedback on the feels, the textures, the sensorials, the fact that there are no artificial fragrances or colors also helps to boost it, and it's something that we talk about a lot. So a lot of it is in the educational space, either around the concept or around the products or around the use cases. So the formats can be either reels, the formats can be posts. We do a lot of blogs also, because coming from an expert POV, we do believe that some sort of slightly more serious content is also needed. But at the same time, all the remaining pillars is what we do keep leveraging on an ongoing basis for the brand.
Shalini, your take.
So I agree with all my new age panelists. I mean, they are the teachers for us. We have been learning from them in creating those contents. So yes, since last 1 year, we have seen that spike happening in short videos, reels, and people are more engaging in such kind of content, right? So now the take is we need to understand what should we talk about. Yeah, another thing that I would like to mention is podcast, right? So there is a lot of podcasts we have started since this year itself, where Dr. Kochhar itself is talking about beauty, regime, why, who, which season, what products are suitable. Because not only seasons, but your skin type also varies with your age, right? So these type of education is actually needed to all the ages, because now social media, Instagram, YouTube, everything is accessible to every age now. I mean, teenagers are also having that, and your Gen Alpha is also having your account simultaneously. So they are also accessing such kind of content. So as a content creator, we should be carrying kind of responsibility that whatever goes out should be a kind of giving them an education in a positive manner, how to use, what to use, and in which manner they should use it. It is not always that oil can be applied in the same manner as you apply moisturizer. It's different. How you use an oil is completely different how to use moisturizer. So those kind of content is being talked about more in reels and short videos. It is being a quirky manner where two siblings are talking about in a varied manner, so that we will get a more engagement there. And when we are talking it on the podcast, then it should be a very, very proper agenda where we are trying to educate every sort of like consumer. So that's how we are trying to change the behavior of the content which we used to make pre-COVID and what we used to make it now. Pre-COVID, it used to be a normal YouTube format where we are only talking about the product and that's all, how to use, and that's all we are used to do. But now it has changed. We have added that extra tinge of consumer connect there. Every age, every customer is getting connected to you. So the content you are creating, it should make relevance for every age of your customer. So that's how we are trying to leverage all the types of format of content.
Abhinav, any takeaway from you?
No, sure. Talking about content, we were more with B2B, right? We started about 4 years back. That time, we were probably kind of category creators. So our content mostly revolved around how about, starting up online or setting up your D2C businesses, how to leverage data. So when we started off in terms of category creation, we were mostly talking about, what data is, how to leverage it, what is conversion, rather than really talking about products. So we spent a lot of time, actually we still do, right? We create a lot of content on just the online category, right? And not really on our products. I think now probably 3 years into the business, we have started doing some content around products, but we've been largely still focused on category creation. So we just talk about online businesses, how to leverage data, how to improve conversion. So we do a lot of that stuff rather than just focusing on, marketing ourselves. Yeah.
So we'll open the house for questions, if any one of you have questions.
Hi everyone. My question is open to the floor. So how do you, as let's say beauty brands operating in the quick commerce section, manage reverse logistics or returns? Because as a company, I feel that will be one of the biggest pain points, because it also messes up your supply chain efficiency and management as well.
I can take that. So the way quick commerce works is very different from e-commerce players like Amazon or any other marketplace. Quick commerce would usually take your inventory up front and they would store it for you, so you don't have to deal with the day-to-day RTVs or the returns. And historically, when Blinkit, Zepto started, they were not accepting any returns at all, but obviously they got the consumer insight that they need to start taking returns, otherwise the consumer was really getting annoyed. But in terms of how does the return policy work, or how do we manage it, I do think all the quick commerce players, because they have very limited storage, they are hypersensitive about their data. They do not take any risky bets, or they don't take any like SKU type or any product which they are not confident about, at least now, or even back then they were more experimental in nature. So I would say for us it's not been a problem because their data insights are so sharp that they know exactly what's working, how many units they need, how many days they need to have that cover for, which ones are your fast movers, they need 2 months of stock for those or less than that. So I think the data here has helped us a lot, where a lot of the insights are so solid that there's no back and forth. And even in terms of any new listing that we would do on any quick commerce player, it's usually basis data or some insight that's working on Amazon or another platform or Nykaa. So I would say that really mitigates the return, which has been a blessing for, as a founder, because returns on other platforms where you have no choice, you have to just accept returns, is a bigger hassle. Over here, it's been bare minimum, at least for us. I'm not sure about other players, but I do think it optimizes the business model because of the limited space, optimizes for lack of any inefficiency or lack of, just like foresight of what is working or what's not working. So I think overall it is great for most categories from what I've understood.
So I'll take it next one. BPC is majorly a category where low or no return kind of policy, right? So if we are quite sure in your selection of the product, like I already discussed about, that you have chosen that data point is also helping us. These quick commerce guys are more smarter than you. They'll come up with you and discuss about the entire assortment. I said that let's pick up all the face washes. They will not choose it off. They will say ki this is the range of face washes out of which these 2 or 3 might be working for us, and we go with their thought itself, and that is helping us a lot. So we are blessed with that low or no return wala thing across. And BPC category में generally जो returns आते भी हैं आपको वो manufacturing defects की वजह से कई बार आते हैं, and that is we are happy, we are blessed with that. We don't have that. So it's a blessing for us. Returns is not that kind of bigger problem for us.
I agree. In PPC, we typically don't accept returns because of hygiene reasons, obviously. So that is, first of all, off the board. Secondly, the only off chance where it might happen is if the product delivered is incorrect, or if there is some kind of manufacturing defect, which can then be vetted and proved by evidence, typically photographs, videos, etc. So the idea is that you set up a robust enough SOP that helps to negate all the spurious cases that might arise, if they do arise, and you only end up with a very, very small bucket of genuine cases, which as a decent brand, you should anyway replace for your customer. So it's a non-issue, honestly.
Any other question?
Yes. I don't have much to add on returns. These guys run the brand. But we have multiple products which help you return the brands. So in case you're looking at it, you can get that.